And I think it's okay for her to cry here. Well, the problem is that this is a Pokemon game, and unless those people are 10-year-olds, they're not going to be able to help you against a criminal organization. Yeah, definitely not. That's going to be a very convenient feature. Unfortunately, we can't finish it without the professor. Or can we? By the way, this music is amazing. Also, this moment is just, it's kind of nice character development for Lily. Even though she's not all that important in the grand scheme of the game, this makes me like her as a character quite a bit. And here we are. Yeah. You keep thinking that. Like I said, she's not in this game for very long, don't worry. We need to have some way to purify Shadow Pokemon. Yeah, they'll totally target the random receptionist. No, you've already explained that. Yeah, they obviously knew that this organization was active again. Also, let's just check out our Teddiursa. Something I find a little bit annoying about the way they lay out the stat screens, the heart gauge isn't until the second screen this time rather than the first one. I kind of like Colosseum having it right on the first screen. For now, Teddiursa only has 2 moves. We'll talk about those when we actually use them in battle. I do really like this song, though. It just gives this great feeling of the adventure begins. Anyway, the only current lead we have is to check out what our mama's working on, so let's do that. But you might remember something that was said in Kaminko's Manor earlier. Now, Lily actually isn't here. She's over the other side of the building. So we're finally going to Gaten Port. We heard about that machine part and the part shop back in Kaminko's Manor. Oh no, please tell me. Yes, please have her stay here. She's considered lab staff. That doesn't bode well for anyone. So, yeah, we have to escort her, and we're now And Jovi joined the party again. Before we go, though, there's actually something that I want to check out. If you talk to the guy down here, he actually has something interesting to say. He mentions the Shadow incident 5 years ago. Pretty much just a summary of the last game. And this is one of the very few mentions of Wes and Rui in this one. So, where are they now? We have no idea. Speculate away, I guess. There's also some funny dialogue, if I recall correctly, if you talk to Adon here. Oh, actually, no, I thought Jovi would say something. She does not. I think there's something new on the news, too. So, Pokemon are attacking people all over the place. Good thing the snag machine was ready now. We're gonna need it more than ever. So, let's head out to Gaten Port. Let's see what weird curlier girl has to say. Yes, he was. It's funny how you get the option to say no here. Well, because he's extremely knowledgeable on certain things involving Shadow Pokemon and purification, yeah, that might be a reason why he doesn't exactly, why he's a prime target for Cypher, basically. Before we go, though, we get stopped by this dude. Has any of us a little bit of information? And you have to keep rubbing that in. Thankfully, everyone here realizes that that's not true at all. Yes, there might be. There might be in the very next area we go to, hint hint. And we get Crane Memo 1 and Crane Memo 2. Okay, let's go ahead and read those now, just to show them off. They'll be in key items. The Snag System. So, this is basically stuff we already know. I mean, technically it was developed by Team Snag'em, but they were working for Cypher at the time, even though the lower grunts didn't know that. So they're going to develop a failsafe that makes it so that you can only steal Shadow Pokemon. So yeah, with Rui not here, we have no way of determining what Shadow Pokemon look like for ourselves. So they had to develop this headset that senses Shadow Pokemon. Yes, Rui has been replaced by a piece of technology. Sad, isn't it? But yeah, that'll be our indicator of when we see a Shadow Pokemon now. But let's head to Gate and Port. This is an area that is pretty different from anything we've seen during Colosseum. So here we are, Gate and Port. Definitely looks like a seaside town. Still has a bit of the aesthetic of Colosseum though. Also, there's a scary looking big guy down there. This is not going to cause problems when Jovi rushes in on her own. Ah! Extreme close-up creepy eyes. Okay, as annoying as I find Jovi, even I don't want to see her beaten up. We need to intervene here. We might have another battle on our hands. And a Shadow Pokemon. Just like we were warned about. Zangoose would be pretty impressive to have at this point in the game. But messing with people who have unique designs like this probably isn't a good idea. We have someone else battling for us here. Zangoose versus Mystery Man Ardos and his Alakazam. Level 44 Alakazam with Psychic versus a level 28 Zangoose. Even though it's a Shadow Pokemon, yeah, it's not surviving that. Also, Psychic looks way cooler in this game than it does in Colosseum. So that was simple. Being considerably higher level, and using an Alakazam, that helps too. Well, I guess we owe these people. Mysterious close-up. This guy definitely isn't gonna be important later on, at all. Extremely subtle foreshadowing there. Anyway, though, let's just talk to these people. So that's apparently Mr. Verich. So he guesses how rich he is. He's not from around these parts, I guess. Now, there's surprisingly quite a lot to do in Gate and Port, but for the moment, I'll be focusing on this side of town, because that's where the game really expects you to go first. Okay, so the guy we just saw owns a luxury cruiser. Let's see what's in here. So, this is hinting at evolution stones. Again, this game is a lot more accessible to people who've never played a Pokemon game before. Yeah, I feel like life would be a little bit harder for that guy if he lived in Hoenn. Feel like Team Magma would probably be trying to recruit him. Sailor who's sworn off the sea for the land. But it's Jovi's friend. And Jovi's friend's mother. I do kind of like this bit of, I wouldn't really say world building, but it makes sense for a child Jovi's age to have friends in other towns like this, so interesting way of explaining why Jovi knows the area. And again, I'm not her assistant. And my name is not Jovi's big brother. And yes, more people mentioning Mr. Verich. I wonder if he will be important later. We've got an important job to do. No time for play dates at this point. Well, I mean, it was a pretty awesome battle, but it was also over very, very quickly. Oh, this is, Emily with no Y. Emily's house. Jovi's big brother desperately hopes so too. Also, we can talk to the mother if we want. Yes, I wonder, a mysterious person who is definitely not going to be very, very important later. Also, that is pretty amazing. I'm now picturing him in a Phantom Thief mask and outfit. I was expecting something more interesting from the bookshelves. But anyway, let's cut to the chase. This is the location we're really after. This building. This is the part shop. But the guy owning it doesn't seem to be here. A clueless newbie seems to be running the shop now. It's kind of hard to notice this guy. Yeah, I think we actually ran into him before. Well, maybe he provides Dr. Kaminko the parts from his inventions. Don't think there's anything particularly noteworthy upstairs. No, not at all, apart from a bookcase. But a unique book title, I suppose. Even though he's not here, though, you do want to come into this building because of this guy. He is very, very important, and we want to talk to him. So, yeah, there's that, but also... Wait a minute, if you play Colosseum, the name Purr might be familiar to you. You want to say yes. Yeah, it just keeps getting more huge every generation. That makes sense, Eevee is pretty fascinating. And in a few more years' time, that will increase by 1. So, remember how I said back in Eevee's bio that this Eevee will not be an Eevee for long? Well, this is why. We have access to all of Eevee's evolution stones right here. Water Stone, Fire Stone, and Thunder Stone, as well as 2 unique items exclusive to XD. Because XD doesn't have a day-night system, we have the Moon Shard and the Sun Shard. If you try and choose one of them, he'll explain how it works. You need to have the Moon Shard with you at all times, and you also need to have Eevee level up while its friendship is high enough. It's basically the same as Eevee's evolution in the main games, only with the day-night replaced with an item. But I don't want the Moon Shard. So, you can choose any one of these 5 evolutions to evolve Eevee into. Obviously, I'm going to be going over all of them now. First up, the Water-type Eeveelution Vaporeon. Vaporeon's stats lean towards being a tank. It has a huge amount of HP, but great special attack too, so it can dish out attacks just as well as it can take them. Even though it has low defense, that doesn't matter so much with how huge its HP is. Its weakness though is that it is very slow. Its ability is Water Absorb, which heals it for 25% of its max health when it gets hit by a water move. The actual power of the attack it took doesn't matter, it will always heal 25%. And the attack is nullified. Eevee evolutions are not known for having particularly good move pools, but Vaporeon has a surprisingly large number of options in this game. Firstly, it'll obviously pick up Water Gun at level 16, you definitely want that, but you've got Aurora Beam at level 36, which will serve you well for fighting grass and flying types until you get a TM for Ice Beam, Haze to eliminate any stat boosts at level 42, Acid Armor to sharply raise your own defense, patching up one of your main weaknesses at level 47, don't use that and Haze on the same moveset though, and the very strong Hydro Pump at level 52, towards the very end of the game. Before I get to TM moves though, there's something that I need to address with Vaporeon. It's a big weakness of not just Vaporeon, but any water type available in this game. HMs don't exist in the Ore region. Now normally that's not a big deal, but for water types it just so happens their 2 best offensive moves, Surf and Waterfall, are HM exclusive. The lack of these HMs means that any water type you obtain that does not start with either of those 2 moves will never have those 2 moves. In Colosseum this wasn't a big deal, because almost every water type you snagged started out with Surf. This is not the case in XD. Because of this, any water type that you obtain early in the game will definitely suffer in terms of move power around mid to late game. Water Pulse is sadly the best option for a water move you'll have on Vaporeon until level 52, and that is a definite downside to using it. But as far as other TM moves go, you've got Toxic if you want to go a more defensive route, Ice Beam and Blizzard are better options than Aurora Beam, and Rain Dance to boost the power of your own water moves. As far as move tutor moves go, I would highly recommend giving Icy Wind a try. It hits both targets, and while its power is pretty negligible, it has the great side effect of always lowering the target's speed. Dropping the speed of your opponent's entire field in a dull battle is a great advantage to have. Vaporeon is also one of the better uses of Substitute with its enormous HP stat. Overall, Vaporeon is a solid choice here, but just be aware of that limitation regarding never getting Surf or Waterfall. That will start to hurt later in the game. If you don't pick Vaporeon, there is a Water-type Shadow Pokemon that's coming up quite soon, so do bear that in mind as well. It's amazing how swapping 2 stats can change the playstyle of a Pokemon so radically. The only difference in base stats between Vaporeon and Jolteon is that they swap their HP and speed. But while Vaporeon is a slow tank, Jolteon is a blindingly fast special sweeper. There are very, very few Pokemon during the main storyline that will be able to outspeed Jolteon, and that's definitely one of its main assets. The problem with Jolteon is its move pool is a little barren. It has electric moves, and it uses electric moves really well, but it doesn't really have much else. Well, not much else except Bite from Eevee. I would highly recommend keeping this move on Jolteon, maybe even to the end of the game, as it's one of the only non-electric special moves that it learns. Jolteon's ability is Volt Absorb, which is essentially the same thing as Vaporeon's except for electric moves. Speaking of electric moves, apart from those, what does Jolteon get? Well, it's mainly restricted to supportive options. Thunder Wave in particular is very useful in a game as centered around catching Pokemon as this one, though it comes a little bit late at level 42. There is a move tutor, however, in the next area we'll be visiting that can teach the move right now if you want. But remember that it's a one-use only move tutor, so you may want to teach Thunder Wave to something that wouldn't normally learn it. As far as other options go, you have the Rain Dance Thunder combo, and that's really about it. Jolteon is a one-trick fox thing. It zaps things with electricity really fast and doesn't do much else. That being said though, there are few things that can do that job better than it, and it is probably, in my opinion, one of the better Eeveelutions for the main storyline. If you don't pick Jolteon, there are a few more electric-type Pokemon coming up soon, but in my opinion, none of them are quite as good as it is. Poor Flareon. A lot of people joke that Game Freak must have had some kind of irrational grudge against it until Generation 5. Because how else can you explain how badly it was treated as far as move pool goes? Flareon has a really awkward stat distribution, having amazing attack, great special defense, decent special attack, but bad defense, HP, and speed. It's like it's trying to be a physical sweeper, but its speed holds it back, and it's trying to be a special tank, but its bad HP holds it back. Not only that, but for a Pokemon with such an amazing attack stat, it really doesn't learn all that much in the way of physical moves, and obligatory mention of the fact that all fire moves are special in this generation, which I've never found to be that bad for Flareon, because its special attack lets it go mixed anyway. Speaking of fire, Flareon's ability Flash Fire works a little differently to the other two Kanto Eeveelutions. Instead of healing when it's hit by its own type, it increases the power of its own fire moves by 1.5 times. This is a boost that can only activate once per battle though. It's better than nothing, but it'd be a lot more useful if Flareon actually learned physical fire moves. Speaking of moves Flareon learns, oh boy. Flareon's level up move pool is frankly terrible aside from a few standouts. Ember is your only stab option early on, Quick Attack helps patch up its low speed, and will actually hit pretty hard with Flareon's high attack stat, and Flamethrower at level 52 is, well, it's a good fire move. But most other things that Flareon learns are just abysmal. Smog? Leer at level 42? That's a move most Pokemon learn at level 1! Surely TMs must provide a glimmer of hope, right? Actually, they kind of do, especially in Gen 3. Iron Tail is, well, it's always bad when you're relying on it, but it's at least another physical move. Return is also at least another physical move, as is Dig, but physical Shadow Ball is a nice option for Flareon. One that it won't have in later generations, so enjoy it while it still lasts. For tutor moves, you have some more normal type options in Body Slam and Double Edge. Overall, Flareon is awkward to use, but it can fulfill something of a niche as a mixed attacker. If you don't pick Flareon, well, sad to say, there's a Shadow Fire type coming up very soon that's probably a better fire type than Flareon in every way. I'm so sorry, Flareon. Here's a bio that should look familiar to anyone who watched the previous series. Espeon is, well, kinda the same as it was in Colosseum, but with a few notable differences. It's still a really powerful glass cannon that devastates enemies with psychic moves and doesn't do a lot else. It's very similar to Jolteon, just slightly slower, but hitting a lot harder. Its ability is Synchronize, which makes it so that anyone who burns, poisons, or paralyzes it suffers the same status themselves. It's very situational, and bouncing back poison or burn is a very bad thing against Shadow Pokemon. As far as moves it learns, you'll definitely want Confusion at level 16, replacing it with Psybeam at level 36, although around the time you get Psybeam, you might get access to something a lot better. You also have Morning Sun for healing towards the end of the game, but Espeon is really too flimsy to justify it. For TMs, Calm Mind is an option to boost your stats, though you need to play Mount Battle in order to obtain this. Light Screen and Reflect are also decent team support options, but Espeon's frailty makes them a bit less useful. However, there is one very significant TM option that I want to draw attention to: Psychic. Unlike in Colosseum, where you could only get this by grinding in Mount Battle, you find the TM for Psychic during the main storyline a little over halfway through in XD. Teach it to Espeon immediately and you will destroy the mid-game, and pretty much the late game too. In fact, I'd say it's the biggest reason why Espeon is so good in XD. Another option it has in this game that it didn't in Colosseum was Bite. Make sure you carry over this move from Eevee, because Bite helps Espeon a lot. Not only is it a special move of a type other than Psychic, but it hits Ghost types, which Espeon would normally be weak to. Overall, Espeon is a great special sweeper, made even better by how accessible the Psychic TM is in this game. And if you don't pick it, it will actually be a little while before we get a Psychic type that's this good at attacking. And now on to the final Eeveelution, another Pokemon that you'll be quite familiar with if you've seen Colosseum. It's another defensively minded Pokemon like Vaporeon, but while Vaporeon leans towards being a tank, that is, a defensive Pokemon that can actually attack decently well too, Umbreon is more of a pure wall. It has amazing defenses and decent HP, but its attacking stats are very lackluster. Now back in Colosseum, this was okay because Umbreon had Espeon to pick up the slack for it offensively. You won't have that in XD, so if you pick Umbreon for this game, you'll really need to plan the rest of your team around it. Make sure you pack some very powerful attackers to pick up the slack for Umbreon's lackluster offenses. However, Umbreon might actually hit decently hard from the start of the game, because carrying over Bite from Eevee, that's actually the best stab move that it has. And 60 base special attack isn't bad by the standards of the early game. Umbreon's offense will drop off very quickly though. You really want to focus on defense with this one. Oh, and Umbreon has the same synchronize ability as Espeon. For moves, I would highly recommend more than any other Eeveelution that you pay the move relearner for Helping Hand. Boy, I wish Umbreon got this in Colosseum. Umbreon is very passive anyway, so giving up its own turn to boost its partner isn't a big loss to it. Pursuit at level 16 is what's meant to be your first stab. I'd recommend ditching it though. Bite is a lot better. You also have Confuse Ray to debilitate things. Feint Attack has the same power as Bite, but it also never misses, useful against a certain optional boss, Double Team Spammer, who, sadly enough, is back in this game. Screech is good for supporting attackers on your team, and Moonlight is a must-have in the late game. For TMs, I'd recommend focusing on defensive moves, like Toxic, Dig for stalling, Rest until you have access to Moonlight, and Taunt can cripple some opponents. As far as tutor moves go, you can use Body Slam for a makeshift Parafusion combo. Swagger is a little bit more of a risky alternative than Confuse Ray. You raise their attack as well, which means if they hurt themselves, they'll do more damage, but if they don't, there's a good chance they'll be doing more damage to you. And it's a bit of a weird option, but if you have a team that with sleep moves, Nightmare is a move, I guess. Overall, Umbreon is a Pokemon that you really need to plan a team around if you are choosing in this game. Make sure you pack some good attackers to make up for its lack of power. Also, if you don't choose Umbreon, there are quite a few decent Dark types we'll be getting in the early game. So that's a pretty big hit to it. So, that's the basic spiel. If you want my personal opinion, Espeon, from what I can tell, is probably the best, but if you played Colosseum, you will have already used an Espeon before, so you might like something different. Jolteon is also a great choice, and Vaporeon, while slow, is a decent attack with a lot of options. Umbreon is okay, but it requires a lot of support from its teammates, and there are more Dark types available quite soon. Flareon has always been that one Eeveelution that's just generally not that amazing, having awkward stats and generally being one of the least helpful to use. But I've always been one to root for the underdog, so I say, bring it on! I should mention that in my first playthrough, I chose Flareon as well. So, we're getting the Firestone. We have one, we can use it at any time to evolve our Eevee into Flareon.